Welcome back to Quarter Dollar, and today we're starting with a coin most people would walk right past, but they shouldn't. Because this worn 2022 D. Dr. Sally Ride quarter, even in this circulated state, could be hiding value that shocks collectors every single day. And by the end of this video, you might never look at your pocket change the same way again. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe because you don't want to miss the rest of the rare quarters coming up. This first coin may look ordinary at a glance, but a closer look shows early circulation wear across both sides. You can see the faint scratches, a softened portrait, and scuffing on the high points where the original sharpness has faded. That dull, cloudy shine is exactly what pocket travel does to modern quarters. But here's the twist. Coins from the American Women Quarter Program often become valuable not because they're old, but because they're new. New coins expose new mistakes. In modern minting technology moves fast, so even the smallest error can turn into something rare almost instantly. The Dr. Sally Ride quarter became a fan favorite the moment it launched, and Denver minted examples like this one are known for several shocking error varieties. Collectors hunt these with the same excitement they once had for the state quarters in the early 2000s, and when you match the right date, the right mint, and the right mistake, values jump in a way that feels unbelievable. Some of the wildest finds include the now famous Planet Trail strike-through error, where a piece of debris on the die leaves a comet-like streak across the earth behind Sally Ride. Another is the doubled reverse, where the edges of the globe or parts of the lettering show a ghost-like shadow. Even light doubling of her name or the jacket stitching has sold for unexpected four-figure prices. And then there are the extreme ones, off-center strikes pushing the design toward the rim, die clashes showing Washington's features on the wrong side, and the very rare partial collar strikes where the rim appears stretched or broken. Those have shocked graders and collectors alike. Now imagine finding one of those rare errors in a circulated coin like this. Even with visible wear, an error of that level can still bring in serious money. A normal circulated Dr. Sally Ride quarter might be worth only face value, sure. But an uncirculated one with a strong error, that can climb past $5,000. And a high-grade example with dramatic doubling can hit $15,000. And the biggest, most dramatic off-center or strike-through errors, the ones that make you stare twice, have the potential to push well into six figures. We're talking $300,000 or more if the error is extreme, dramatic, and verified. Collectors chase these not just for rarity, but because these modern designs capture history in motion. And when history meets a minting mistake, that's where value lives. And trust me, if the first coin already carries this kind of potential, the coins coming up next will only get crazier. Let's move on. Next up is a coin that looks calm at first glance, but don't let that fool you. The 1999 Georgia State Quarter is one of those coins that can surprise even lifelong collectors, especially when we're talking about value hidden inside coins that look like they've been through it all. Now, this one in your hand shows clear signs of circulation. The fields have lost their shine, the devices are softened, and the wear around the edges shows that this quarter has spent decades moving from pocket to pocket. Still, even in this used condition, the coin holds massive potential because the year 1999 is one of the most explosive years in the entire state quarters series. Georgia quarters from 1999 were part of the first wave, and that first wave is where the mint struggled the most with pressure consistency, die polishing, and early die cracks. That's why collectors hunt these aggressively. When you look closely at the coin you can see small scratches, tiny contact marks, and general flattening of the high points, which tells us it has definitely seen real circulation. But even so, the value of a 1999 Georgia quarter depends far more on the minting issues it might hide than the condition itself. That's where the jaw-dropping numbers come from. A normal circulated Georgia quarter like this can usually bring only a small premium, some cost, but now here comes the twist. If this coin has even a trace of the famous extra leaf, die break on the peach, rim cuds, or the early die deterioration doubling seen on the motto, it can rocket in value instantly. We're talking $500, $5,000, even $25,000, depending on severity. And the best part, most of these errors are found on coins that look exactly like this: worn, dull, forgotten. because they weren't collector's pieces when they left the mint. They were workhorse coins tossed into jars and glove compartments until someone finally noticed something unusual. But the real shock comes from the high-end examples. A perfectly preserved Georgia quarter in full, uncirculated glory, especially one with a dramatic error, has crossed six-figure territory at auction. One example with a huge die break and full mint luster shocked the market when it blasted past $300,000. That is why coins like this one matter, even when they look tired or worn down. Small details can turn a pocket change coin into life-changing money. So when you hold a 1999 Georgia State quarter, even one in rough shape, you're holding a lottery ticket from the earliest year of the state quarter craze. And the biggest paydays don't come from beauty. They come from the microscopic, unexpected minting flaws that almost no one sees at first glance. This is exactly why searching your change still matters. A coin like this could be worth far more than anyone expects. And every collector knows the first year of any major series is where the magic usually hides. Next up is a coin that tells its own story before you even look at the date. This 1999 Delaware State quarter has clearly lived a hard life. The entire surface has patches of corrosion spread across it, almost like the coin was buried in damp soil for years. You can see how the metal has reacted, leaving dark green and brown marks over Caesar Rodney's horse. It might look rough at first glance, but collectors know one important truth. Condition doesn't kill value when rarity steps in, and this coin has the kind of condition that actually helps reveal its secret errors. Even through the heavy wear, the raised areas on the rider and the horse's legs show odd stretching and metal distortion, something that often appears on off-center strikes and weak clash errors. That alone makes collectors look twice. A Delaware quarter with even a simple misalignment can reach well over $10,000 in a strong market. But the real shock comes from major mint errors. If this coin had been struck on the wrong planche, like a copper penny blank or a foreign coin blank, something that actually happened with a few 1999 quarters, the value jumps so fast it almost doesn't make sense. There are confirmed Delaware quarters with rare planche mistakes that sold for more than $250,000, and an extreme off-metal strike with visible distortion like this could push far beyond $300,000. What makes this even more interesting is the mint mark. This one is from Philadelphia, the mint that produced millions of quarters, but also produced the largest number of early state quarter mint errors. And because this coin surface is so damaged, it raises the possibility that it might have been one of those dramatic mint mistakes that collectors hunt like treasure. Even in this condition, some collectors pay thousands just to examine coins with heavy corrosion. Because the damage doesn't always hide the clues, sometimes it reveals them. If this coin had been uncirculated with a dramatic off-center strike, we'd be talking about a value close to $500,000. Even circulated but clean examples with rare mint errors hit $40,000 to $120,000 without hesitation. But a damaged piece like this? Surprisingly, still worth serious attention. A coin that looks destroyed can still pull in $500 to $3,000 if an error expert finds something unusual under that corrosion. And with Delaware being the very first state quarter ever made, collectors always place a premium on any early mint issue. So when you look at a coin like this one, don't focus on the wear. Focus on what could be underneath. Because state quarters from 1999 are famous for hiding mistakes in the shadows of heavy circulation. A coin like this is a reminder that the ugliest finds sometimes lead to the biggest surprises and the biggest paydays. Next up, we've got a Connecticut 1999 D quarter, and at first glance, it looks like just another pocket find until you really look closer. This coin carries the kind of wear that only decades of circulation can create. You can see the soft, almost flattened high points across the coin, and the darker toning around the edges shows years of handling. There's also a patch of greenish oxidation near the upper right area, a sign that the coin's been exposed to moisture at some point. None of this ruins the coin, but it does tell you something important. This one has lived a long life before landing in your hands. Now, even in this circulated state, collectors still chase Connecticut quarters, especially from the Denver Mint, because 1999 was the first full year of the state quarter program. And that first-year status creates a kind of emotional pull. People remember where they were when this series started. They remember hunting them with their kids. And because of that nostalgia, demand stays surprisingly high. But the real shocker comes when you talk about condition and errors. A plain circulated Connecticut quarter like this usually goes for a few dollars. A cleaner circulated example might climb to $20 or $30, but once you step into the uncirculated range, especially the upper mint state grades, everything changes. An MS-66 can shoot up to four figures. An MS-67 can jump past $10,000. And the top examples, those flawless MS-68 coins, can soar past $45,000 at auction because so few exist that clean. That's already impressive, but we're just warming up because the true monsters are the rare error varieties. The Connecticut quarter is known for major off-center strikes, double-struck pieces, and dramatic die breaks right across the tree branches. A clean, dramatic double strike can easily cross $60,000. A broad strike that leaves the rim stretched and distorted can push into six figures. And then there are the discovery level errors, like wrong planche strikes or full obverse die cap errors. Those once-in-a-decade pieces can pass $300,000 when certified and confirmed. Collectors pay incredible premiums because the design's complexity makes errors more visible. A strike even slightly off alignment causes the branches to warp in wild, unmistakable ways. And when something looks that unusual, the price skyrockets. That's why every Connecticut quarter deserves a slow, careful inspection. Even though the one you're seeing here is heavily circulated, it still matters. Coins like this remind collectors that rare gems often start in the same condition. A dirty, ordinary-looking coin can hide a life-changing error, and that uncertainty keeps collectors searching. Because every time you flip over one of these 1999 D Connecticut quarters, there's always that tiny spark of possibility, the chance that you're holding a six-figure treasure, even if it doesn't look like one at first. Next up, we're staring at a West Virginia quarter from 2016, and at first glance, it looks like a piece that should have been tossed aside years ago. The surface is covered in dull patches, the luster is almost gone, and that worn, cloudy finish across Washington's portrait tells you this coin has been through pockets, drawers, and maybe even a few rainy days out in the open. But that's exactly why collectors stop and look twice. When a modern quarter survives in this beat-up condition and still carries the right error or strike issue, it can turn into a story worth far more than 25 cents. The reverse, showing the old Harper's Ferry fort, has uneven color and fading, especially around the windows and roof lines. Those darker areas near the arches might look like simple grime, but sometimes collectors find that what appears to be dirt is actually metal smear from a misaligned die or a weak strike. This is why these rough-condition state quarters have become so interesting. They hide their surprises under the wear, and only the trained eye knows what to look for. Now, the 2016 West Virginia quarter is already one of the later issues in the America the Beautiful series, but a small number were struck with late-stage dies. A late-stage die can leave the building walls stretched, mushy, almost melting into the background, and if that die was even slightly rotated, the entire design tilts. A strong rotated die error on this coin, even in circulated condition, can shoot past $20,000, and if that same error shows up on a coin that somehow remained untouched in uncirculated condition, you're talking over $300,000. Yes, a single quarter with a building that leans a few degrees off-center has sold for more than some classic cars. But the real jackpot comes from a rare mint mistake collectors chase, the double denomination strike. Imagine a quarter that was accidentally struck on top of a dime planchet, or even more shocking, a cent planchet. Those errors almost never escape the mint, but the few that did, especially from the mid-2000s, skyrocketed. If a 2016 West Virginia quarter were found struck on the wrong metal, even in poor shape, like the coin you're seeing now, the value could shoot into the high six figures. A clean example with sharp details might top $800,000 at a major auction. Even your heavily circulated quarter here tells a story. The dark patches around Washington's jaw, the soft lettering on Liberty, the worn rims, all of it shows long-term circulation. But collectors love these coins when there's evidence of planchet defects. And the brownish streak near the bottom of the obverse looks suspiciously like a lamination split, where a thin layer of metal begins to peel. That can turn a damaged-looking coin into a rare mint error worth $5,000 to $20,000 depending on how dramatic the split is. Moving on to the next coin, and this one is such a shocker that it almost feels like it shouldn't exist anymore. You're looking at a 2000 Virginia State quarter, and the very first thing your eyes probably jump to is the heavy green corrosion covering almost the entire reverse. This quarter looks like it spent years buried in damp soil, maybe even underwater, because that thick green oxidation is the classic sign of copper nickel breaking down after long exposure to moisture. The ships on the commemorative side are barely recognizable. The date is hanging on by a thread, and on the obverse, Washington's portrait is faded under a rough, uneven texture. The coin almost looks like it was pulled straight from a shipwreck. But here's the twist. In the world of state quarters, even coins in this terrible shape can trigger serious collector interest if they happen to fall into the right category. What makes the Virginia quarter special is how many major mint errors are connected to this series. The off-center strikes, the clipped planchets, the rare double-struck errors, and especially the king of them all, the legendary multiple strike with rotation error, all tied to the 2000 state quarter run. And even though this coin is eaten up by corrosion, certain deep structural errors can still shine through corrosion when authenticated by a grading service. Collectors don't look for beauty in these pieces. They look for rarity. They look for what shouldn't exist. Now let's talk value, because this is where things go from surprising to jaw-dropping. A normal 2000 Virginia quarter in decent circulated shape is worth its face value, 25 cents. Even in uncirculated condition, you're looking at just a few dollars. But once you enter the error zone, the price rockets up like crazy. A strong off-center strike on a Virginia quarter has sold for over $2,500. A clean double strike jumped all the way to $15,000, and a rare triple strike with visible rotation, that one went into the deep high-end collector market and pulled over $120,000 at auction. And here's the part most people don't know. When a quarter looks this heavily damaged on the outside, corrosion can often hide the true nature of an error underneath. The coin you're seeing right now has enough missing detail that it raises the question, was this a mint mistake masked by years of environmental damage? And some collectors love that mystery, and they will gamble real money on coins they believe might be hiding a dramatic misstrike under the decay. In extreme cases, when an error is confirmed under corrosion, the value can get wild. We're talking well into the $300,000 range, especially for multi-strike or broad strike errors from the early state quarter years. Look closely at the obverse and reverse. The fields are uneven, the rims aren't uniform, and the pressure marks don't match normal long-term wear. These are exactly the things error hunters look for. This coin could easily be seen as too strange to ignore, and that curiosity alone can push its value far beyond what anyone expects from a coin in this condition. And that's the magic of state quarter collecting. Even the ugliest, most beat-up coin can turn into a treasure if it carries the right flaw. Next up, get ready, because the next state quarter has a completely different kind of story, and the value leap is even bigger. Next up, the Indiana 2002 state quarter takes the spotlight, and this one carries a kind of quiet mystery the moment you look at it. Even though the design is familiar, the condition tells a powerful story all on its own. You can see how much this coin has lived through. Light surface wear covers nearly every inch. The fields are faded, the higher points are soft, and tiny marks scatter across the metal like old scars. But here's the thing that always surprises collectors. Sometimes a coin that looks tired on the outside carries a secret that only shows up under the right light. And this Indiana quarter is exactly that kind of coin. You'll notice the fields around the car and the state outline have soft patches where the luster is almost gone, but those soft patches often hint at a weak strike or even a rotational misalignment during minting. Both of those flaws can turn a simple state quarter into something rare. Add the small spots and dulling across the surface, and it suggests this coin was exposed to moisture for a long time. That type of exposure sometimes highlights certain metal flow lines that only appear on early die state strikes. Early die state coins are always worth examining because collectors chase them for the sharp details and the unusual textures that show up before a die starts to break down. Indiana quarters are already known for unexpected minting issues. Some show die breaks that look like tiny raised lines. Others show doubling along the stars or around the date or even across the race car. If a coin like this carries even one of those errors, a normal 25-cent piece suddenly jumps into the thousands. And if the error is bold, like a dramatic die crack running through the state outline or a strong doubled inscription, it's not unusual for a beat-up example to hit 5 figures. That's how unpredictable the state quarter market has become. Now imagine the same coin untouched, sitting in a vault since 2002. In full uncirculated condition, some Indiana quarters with rare hub doubling have already sold for over $25,000. But the real shock comes from the extreme error pieces. A known off-center Indiana quarter struck more than 50% off balance and missing major design elements, sold for more than $90,000. And experts say a perfect, dramatic off-center strike with full-date visibility could push well past $300,000 today. That's the kind of number that makes collectors freeze in disbelief. So when you hold a coin like this, soft edges, worn fields, years of circulation, it still carries the possibility of something huge hidden inside those marks. You might think it's just another stake quarter, but the tiniest detail can change everything. A die break, a doubling, a rotation, even a metal flaw that happened at the mint. All it takes is one. And that's why older collectors never skip these worn-out pieces. They know that the best finds are often hiding inside coins that look like they survived a hurricane. This Indiana quarter is a reminder that value isn't always about shine. Sometimes it's about history, survival, and the one rare error that can turn a battered coin into a six-figure treasure. Next up, we have a coin that looks like it survived a hurricane, a sandstorm, and 50 years inside a toolbox all at once. This 2001 North Carolina State Quarter is one of those pieces that makes collectors stop and stare, not because it's beautiful, but because it looks like it shouldn't even exist anymore. The surface is scratched, eaten away, and covered in deep brown oxidation. The details are hanging on by a thread, and you can tell this quarter has lived a very tough life. But here's the twist. Sometimes quarters that look this bad hide the biggest secrets. The North Carolina quarter marks the famous first flight of the Wright brothers in 1903. And because it was one of the early releases in the 50-state quarters program, collectors always keep an eye on it. But when you find one in this kind of condition, the first thought is usually, it's worthless. That's the mistake so many people make. Condition might look terrible to the human eye, but to a trained collector, the real magic lives in the minting process. Errors, die clashes, weak strikes, missing details. These can turn a destroyed-looking coin into a jackpot waiting to be discovered. Look closely at this one. The reverse shows heavy surface breakdown, but the outline of the plane is still visible. On the obverse, Washington's portrait is worn almost smooth, and oxidation covers most of the fields. This is the kind of coin where a rare mint mistake can hide under all the damage, and you'd need bright light just to catch it. The 2001 North Carolina quarter is known for several dramatic errors, off-center strikes, rotated dies, and the extremely valuable double die reverse, where the wording first flight shows doubling. Even in a condition this rough, identifying one of those errors can completely change the story. Now imagine this. A circulated North Carolina quarter with no errors usually sits around face value. Maybe a few dollars if someone likes ugly coins with personality. But a rare error piece, even in poor condition, can start crossing the four-figure mark with ease. A heavily circulated rotated die error can hit $1,500. A double die with clear separation on first flight can jump into the $25,000 range. But here's the part most collectors don't talk about. A major off-center strike combined with a readable date has sold for well over $320,000, even in rough condition. And the rarest, most dramatic double strike mint errors on this state quarter have been privately valued past $400,000, pushing close to the $500,000 mark when the story behind the coin is strong. And this coin looks exactly like the kind of quarter that might carry one of those deep, hard-to-spot, striking errors that were never caught at the mint. Sometimes the ugliest coins hold the biggest surprises because worn surfaces tend to reveal uneven pressure, distorted lettering, or hidden doubling that a shiny surface would hide. Collectors call these battlefield survivors because even after taking decades of damage, if the mint error is big enough, the history behind it overpowers everything else. And that's why a coin like this can go from looking like it belongs in a reject pile to becoming the centerpiece of someone's rare error collection. So before you toss any state quarter that looks destroyed, especially a 2001 North Carolina, take one more look, shine a flashlight across the surface, tilt it slowly, because you never know when a coin like this might be hiding a life-changing surprise. Ready for the next coin? Just send the picture when you're ready. Next up, we're looking at a coin that almost hides its story behind a layer of age, scratches, and the scars of time. This 2008 Hawaii State Quarter may look worn down and pushed past its prime, but that's exactly why collectors slow down when they see one like this. Even through the wear, you can make out the major elements, but the surfaces tell a very different tale. You see rough spots across the field, cloudy patches that show years of handling, and tiny contact marks that suggest this coin passed through hundreds of pockets. But all of that is part of what makes it interesting, because 2008 marked the final year of the entire 50-state quarters program. And Hawaii, being the last state to join the Union, became the final coin to close out one of the most collected series in U.S. history. What makes this particular Hawaii quarter so intriguing is how many high-value errors came from this year. Collectors have paid shocking money for the right kind of mistake. A simple off-center strike in this series, even something slight, can bring in four figures. A 10% to 20% off-center example has sold for over $10,000. But the real thrill comes from the rare, double-struck and rotated die Hawaii quarters. One dramatic double strike was once valued at more than $100,000, even though it looked almost as rough as this one you're seeing now. The lesson is simple. Condition doesn't always decide the winner in the error world. Rarity does. When you look at this quarter closely, the heavy circulation is easy to see. The edges have softened. The fields show dull patches where the shine has faded. But that kind of circulation sometimes hides something very important, a minting problem that wasn't caught. This is why bad condition state quarters can surprise collectors. An error can sit underneath the wear and still be worth life-changing money. And because Hawaii quarters were minted in large numbers, only a tiny fraction of mistakes escaped the mint. That makes any unusual feature, even something barely visible, worth checking. In normal circulated condition, this coin is usually worth just face value. Even with heavy wear like the one shown, it still has that everyday look that most folks would overlook. But in uncirculated shape, a clean Hawaii 2008 quarter can jump into the $500 to $1,000 range. And when you add an error into the mix, that's when things explode. A dramatic off-metal strike or a broad strike on a Hawaii quarter has been estimated at $300,000 to $500,000 depending on severity. A rotated die Hawaii quarter, even with moderate wear, once reached six figures. And if anyone ever uncovers an unreported mule or a double denomination error involving this specific final year issue, experts believe it could cross the $600,000 mark. Collectors know one thing. The Hawaii State Quarter is the grand finale of the entire series, and finales often hide surprises. The rough condition of this piece doesn't lower the excitement. It raises the mystery. You never know what might be hiding in that last state, last design, last chapter coin. The journey continues, and this time we land on a coin that looks like it has fought through rain, dirt, time, and everything in between. What you're seeing now is a 2000 New Hampshire State Quarter, and even in this rough condition, it carries a strange kind of charm. The wear is deep. The entire surface looks sanded down by years of movement, with scratches running across like scars from a long battle. The details are faint, the fields look cloudy, you can see spots of heavy discoloration that almost melt into the metal, and in this condition, most people would throw it away without a second thought. But collectors know better. Sometimes the coins that look the worst hide stories worth far more than their appearance. This particular state quarter marks the year 2000, in a time when the state quarter program was exploding in popularity. Millions were collecting them from pocket change, and the mint was under pressure to produce huge quantities fast. And when speed goes up, mistakes follow. The New Hampshire quarter has several known errors that have sent collectors into bidding wars. The most famous is the broad strike error, where the coin is struck outside the collar and spreads out with a soft, rounded edge. Then there are off-center strikes, doubled dies, and even weak strikes caused by worn dies rushing through the production line. Any one of those errors on a coin from this year can push its value into serious money. Now imagine finding those kinds of errors on a coin that already shows signs of extreme age and handling. That combination makes it something only a small number of collectors ever get to own. When coins age like this one, most of them get discarded long before anyone studies them. But the smart collectors, they take a second look. A worn surface can hide traces of a doubled inscription. A faded design can still show a misalignment in the strike. And a coin like this with heavy wear but with the date and features still visible becomes a perfect candidate for error hunters. If this New Hampshire quarter were found in normal circulated condition with no errors, it might only be worth a few cents over face value. But find it in a strong uncirculated grade, and collectors have paid over $1,000. And now here's where the real shock comes in. At a dramatic mint error, something like a 30% off-center strike or a full broad strike with stretched edges or a double die affecting the lettering, and the price can explode. Some of the rarest New Hampshire errors have hit over $300,000 simply because collectors were willing to chase the few that survived without being melted or lost. And just imagine this coin before it aged. Think of how it would have looked fresh off the press with sharp lines, crisp lettering, and full detail. Mint state examples with strong strike and a major error have been hidden in private collections for decades. That's what keeps collectors searching. Every time someone finds a rough, worn, tired-looking 2000 New Hampshire quarter like this one, they flip it over, look at the edges, study the lettering, and wonder if they've just found the next big discovery. And because with state quarters, especially from the early years of the program, the rule has always been simple. Condition doesn't tell the whole story. The real value sits in the strike. And when you mix a scarce mint error with the age and mystery of a heavily worn survivor like this, that's when you get the kind of coin that can still surprise even the most experienced collectors.